So, good morning to all of you. Welcome to this morning's session on risk assessment, new methods and sources of data within the POLIS Conference. Firstly, I wanted to say thank you very much for inviting me to chair this session, and really well done so far for the conference. Now we have to imagine that instead of grey Brussels or maybe sunny London, wherever you happen to be sitting, we are in Arnhem-Nijmegen in the Netherlands. Unfortunately not, but hopefully we'll be meeting together again in person very soon. So we have some excellent speakers here this morning. I can just present them very briefly. We have a real range of different speakers. Matthias Mallik from Daimler, if I could just go back to the first slide. Yeah, thank you. Matthias Mallik from Mercedes-Benz, Lina Konstantinopoulou from Eurorap, Patricia La Torre from Humanising Autonomy, Shirley from Vervoerregio Amsterdam. So a real range. Perhaps a few words about myself and the European Transport Safety Council, ETSC. So we're an NGO dedicated to reducing deaths and serious injuries across the EU, based here in Brussels with members all across the European Union. And one of our bread and butter activities is gathering and analyzing road safety data within the context of our Road Safety Performance Index program, the PIN program. So part of that, of course, is then developing recommendations and calling for action to improve road safety. We have at a European level a road safety strategy with targets to reduce road deaths and serious injuries by 50% by 2030. And all of the speakers today will be looking at, in their own little ways or big ways, how we can help one another to reach this goal of reducing road deaths and serious injuries across the EU. So maybe if we go to the next slide, which is on housekeeping. Thank you very much. So we, of course, would very much welcome questions and encourage you to ask them in the chat. So to ask the questions, go to the chat, which is up on the top right, and then session, and then you can click in and type your question. To look at who else is participating in the session, and I've got this window open and I can really see some very friendly other faces, people that I know and work with. So thanks very much for participating this morning. We're going to be going until 11 o'clock. So you can view who is attending, go to the people side, and then if you want to maximize the screen, you can hide the chat or double click on the presentation or the speaker. And after the session, try the networking function, which is also there on the bottom left. And you can also, of course, visit the exhibition area, all virtually. So now, in terms of the actual structure of this morning's session, we've got 4 excellent speakers. They'll each be presenting for 10 minutes, and then we'll have a 5-minute possibility to ask questions specifically to that presentation. And then after the presentations, there'll be a chance for discussion, again with questions from you, the participants, the audience, and ourselves. I'm going to be strict on the timekeeping so that we do have time for the questions. So the first speaker is Matthias, but I just want to check because we were having problems with the sound. If we've managed to sort out sound for Matthias, can we can we start with him, or do we go to Lina Manon, my kind support person from Polis?
I think maybe Lina can start.
Okay, lovely. All right. So thanks very much. Lina Konstantinopoulou is the Secretary General of Eurorap, the European Road Assessment Programme. So Lina, if you could start sharing your screen, please, your presentation. Previously, she worked for 10 years in senior management roles, both at Klepa and Ertico. Okay, now we have Matthias.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, super. Now we'll go back to the original order. I'm very glad to see you and glad that the audio is working. So sorry, Lina, I will reintroduce you again in 10 minutes. Matthias, lovely that you're here, that we can hear you. So if you could maybe also start to share your screen, and I will introduce you. So Matthias has been at Daimler for more than 10 years, working in a variety of roles. Yeah, since 2018, so very interesting. He's been working in a department looking at which is called Urban Mobility Solutions, so which he's managing, and there he's responsible for business strategy and data products. So Matthias is very interested in co-creation between cities and industry, citizen centricity, and the creation of shared values, making cities more livable in the future. So I did have a look through your presentation, Matthias, and I wonder if you're going to share the secret of who is the partner city. Are you going to do that?
Yes, I will do that.
Okay,
I checked that yesterday. So
fantastic. Yeah. Okay, well the floor is yours. Thanks, Matthias.
Thank you. Hopefully you can now see my screen. Thanks for bridging the time a bit, Ellen, and thanks for the introduction. I will tell you something about the power of vehicle data insights today, and I want to tell you about the secret of how to overcome the limitations of crash data. As Ellen already mentioned, I'm working for Urban Mobility Solutions, and we are trying to really make cities more livable by using our assets and our expertise that we have in the field of mobility. So let's start with Bertha. We always start with this picture because this tells the story about our heritage. We were the ones that reinvented mobility over 130 years ago. So I think we are following this path, and we created with this invention a path of growth. And when you have a look at this picture, you really see the car as a symbol of freedom, the car as a symbol of overcoming long distances, giving access to opportunities, an emotional picture that is linked to the car. And this, I think, was true for the last decades. But now I think we must also face that there are some challenges coming up with an increased mobility demand and increasing amount of vehicles on the street. And this is why we think that mobility needs to be reinvented again, especially in urban areas. This is also why we were set up as a department, and we were talking to cities now for more than 1 year. And we were asking what are the pain points, the main pain points of cities. And it always comes back to only 4 categories of challenges. It's usually safety, sustainability, efficiency, and accessibility. Today, of course, we want to focus on safety. And we visualized the situation and the challenge with some figures, but I think all of you can agree that all of these figures are way too high. And this is what really unites us. We must strive to reduce the figures, but especially to reduce the pain and the damage behind those figures. It's about lives. It's not about figures. It's about lives. And we all must save lives in case we're capable of do that. So we are pretty much united and sharing the same vision of Vision Zero, which is not a buzzword for me, which is really about creating safer cities and in the end, saving lives, avoiding fatal crashes and severely injuries by traffic incidents. So we think that the connected car is not only the problem, but it's also part of the solution and the game changer in the field of urban mobility. Why do we think so? The cars, as we see them today, already have high quality vehicle sensors and connectivity features on board. And we have more than 12 million cars out there that are already connected and sending their signals, sending information. And to reflect which capabilities we have and which high quality of sensors we have built into our vehicles, you can see the 25 gigabytes that we would be capable of collecting per vehicle per hour. So we are not doing that because it's not efficient, but this is just reflecting the sheer capabilities that is built in each and every car. So let's turn to one of my favorite pages. This page is displaying the value of 25 gigabytes of data and per vehicle per hour for me. There is none. There is no value for me. And I don't know how this page would look like for you in case you would only get a database with 25 gigabytes raw data. How would the slide look for you? I think in most cases, or 50% of the cases, the screen would remain black. So it's very important to not only share data, but create insights, create actionable insights. And I'm very happy that the entire thing is not dependent on my skills, but we have some very, very good experts with us that are used to translate those high-end sensor signals of our cars and the data behind into actionable insights for decades now. You must understand that each and every driver assistance system is based on sensor signals, based on data. And already today we equip our cars with lots of advanced driver assistance systems like you can see on the screen. We are actively braking in case we see the risk of a collision. We can identify vulnerable road users in the blind spot. We have active lane keeping assist and all that stuff that you might be familiar with. But it was always pretty much focused on the car, the driver, the ride, and the direct surroundings of the car. So we were really much taking care about a comfortable and safe drive and about the vulnerable road users in the direct surroundings of the car. But we asked ourselves how to open up the perspective and how to share our expertise in order to make an entire city safer, not only the car and the direct surroundings. And this is what we're talking about. And this is what I want to introduce you to. When you have a look at the safety situation in your city today, I think you might have a map, a dashboard like that, where there are the crash data displayed that are collected or documented by the police. And you might have at least a certain transparency about the safety hotspots within your city. But we don't think that this is sufficient. And also our city partner doesn't think that this is sufficient. So we think that it's essential to really open up the urban mobility triangle, to bring in the city, a partner, an OEM, for example, as well as creating a citizen-centric solution. So we really must focus on the behavior of the citizen, and this is very, very important to us. Getting back to the technological capabilities that we have. As mentioned, we already have the active brake assist with bicycle detection, and that you can see on the left-hand side. So we're already identifying such risks of collision. The same goes for pedestrians, as you can see in the middle. We already are as far that we can implement an evasive steering so that we avoid crash by steering away from the pedestrian actively. And we have, of course, the active blind spot assist to warn the driver when he turns right and there is a cyclist in the blind spot. But it's not about technology, and this is what I really want to point out. It's about the stories behind. It's about Tom, who's forced to take the main road because there is no cycle path. There is a driver who's paying for a second no attention to the street and oversees Tom, but the car doesn't. The car is aware of Tom crossing the road. Therefore, the car actively brakes. Tom isn't even aware that something could have happened. He drives home safely. Nothing happens. Please have a look at Melly in the middle of the page. She's forced to cross this 6 to 8 lane street just because she wanted to catch the bus and the next pedestrian crossing is 500 meters away and she doesn't have the time to go there. Our car identifies her on the street, gives an alert to the driver reduces the speed, nothing happens. Melly catches the bus, goes to work, everything's fine. On the right-hand side, you can see Patrick. He is forced daily to commute daily at this narrow street where you can see the parked cars on the right-hand side. The driver of one of those cars is about to open the door when he's crossing, but he gets an alert and gets stopped to open the door. Nothing happens. This is the real power of our data. We are able to create insights about the situations where nothing has happened, where there only was a near miss, a critical situation. And this is what we base now on our analytics on. Please, let's get back to the dashboard that you might have. Let's enrich this dashboard and not only displaying points on a map. It's about creating actionable insights together. Let's add some school zones and let's add the near miss information that we just saw in an aggregated form, prioritized. And this is what we're working on together. And now I'm also able to tell you the name of the city. We're working together with Transport for London in that case, because they bring in all this expertise about their street network, about their infrastructure, about how to deal with road safety overall. And we bring to the table more context. We enable a desk-based, so to say, analysis of their street network. We enable to differentiate between interventions with pedestrians, with cyclists, with cars. We can give way more context to it, how often this happens, if there was a match with an incident in the past and a crash in the past. What is the location about? How does it look like? There's a description. And we can give even more context by telling the daytime when it happens most frequent, and for example, the weekdays. Is it only happening on weekends or on each day of the week? And the most important thing is we are not only confirming the hotspots that you already know, but we also can inform you about the locations where something could happen in the future, because there's a high likelihood, because our cars detect those near misses in a regular frequency. And this is the power of the product that we are developing with TfL together, and which will go live next year. And we are also here looking for 5 additional pioneering cities in the field to test also if this product works and can help, because it's all about co-creation. It's about co-development. It's about creating a shared value between society and business in that case. So to sum it up, safety is our DNA. Hopefully you take this point and can confirm. We're not only caring about the hardware, not only caring about building the safest cars in class, we're also caring about the broader field of safety. And this is the starting point. Creating shared value is our mission. So let's really work together on creating this shared value and make it our joint mission in the end. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. And now I'm really looking forward to answer your questions, and of course to get in touch with you afterwards if you have some interest in our portfolio and what we're doing.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Matthias. That was very, very interesting. Yeah, can I ask, did London come knocking on your door, or did you knock on their door?
That's a good question. We were, to be honest, we were, I must leave, I think, here, right? Yeah. We found out that we must talk to cities, and when we were talking to London, they seemed to be very interested in something in the field of data, but we didn't know about what it was about in detail. So we started first iterations, tried to figure out which requirements they have, what their pain points are, and then really derived this use case, because we said, hey, safety, this is our DNA. Here we have, I think, a unique thing to bring to the table. And then we worked it out jointly. So in this case, it was really a very cooperative approach, and not really just us knocking on one of the most famous cities in Europe, I think. We really had a joint interest, and this is also the basis, I think, for good cooperation with cities, to have a shared interest in a topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so looking at the chat, there are no specific questions for you for the moment. Oh yeah, no, here we are, one from Manon. So Pedro, you are our question master. If I can ask you to come in then, please.
Hi. So far, yes, one question from Manon. Coin. She asks, on parking, what do you think about avoiding on-street parking as an alternative to enabling cyclist detection? A policy question.
Yeah, I was already thinking of some questions in that direction. Yeah, of course, it would be a way to just have a car-free city and just avoid parking on the close to the street. Yes, this would be a solution, but I think, and this is also one of our beliefs, we believe in context-based mobility. So there is a role also for individual mobility, also for cars. And there is then also the need for parking on street, I think. I think what we see in some of the major European cities, that we are currently, I think, finding our way how to share the space in a more balanced way, to find a solution that cyclists and car driver can coexist, I think, in a good manner and a safe manner. And this is what we should all be striving for. Yeah.
Well, Ellen, in the absence of questions, may I make a very short comment on a personal basis? I work as a planner, as a designer on the local level, and really the near miss data is, I feel, it's like the holy grail of road safety statistics, because I do remember, there were several areas where to define the project area, we would follow crash statistics, which are the data available. And then to find, in some cases, I do remember one case where in the following year, after we did our project, in a very close area, there was a pedestrian who was killed, and we had decided that we would not be covering that area because we didn't have the resources to go everywhere, and because there were no previous crashes in that area. But it was really very dangerous area. So near misses are definitely very, very important.
Yeah, and it's always a challenging trade-off. Sorry, Ellen, to interrupt you. It's always a very, very challenging trade-off, because having information about something, of course, brings pressure to the topic. And in case we would share, like with London, 60 hotspots where only 30 are well known from London side, then this is really putting pressure on the topic. And in case something happens, then this is really, really a challenging thing also for authorities. And we have a really good understanding of the challenges that are behind that. But I also think that the near miss data, not only the data, but the aggregated data, the insights that we're creating, the context that we bring to it, this is a really powerful tool.
Yeah, and then the authorities as well, they need the capacity to process it, to act. So capacity, also the budget. Well, good luck with the project. Well, we'll be coming back to you in a while for the panel discussion, so please don't go away. But no, good to hear that it's going live next year. We're nearly in 2021. This morning was the 1st of December, so I opened my first window of the Advent calendar. So next up, we have Lina. So I actually looked up again, what does risk assessment mean? So because the title of this session is Risk Assessment, New Methods and Sources of Data. So it's actually coming up with a systematic process of evaluating the potential risk that may be involved in an activity. So we've heard from, okay, so there's a message there, please, from Lina to Manon to accept the share audio and video. I'll just wait for Lina to be able to join us, but I can already introduce her. So as mentioned previously, it's a great honor to have you with us, Lina Konstantinopoulou. She's the Secretary General of Eurorap, the European Road Assessment Programme. Before that, she was working for 10 years with Clipper and Ertico ITS Europe. And she's also very interested in artificial intelligence and autonomous driving. So she has 2 qualifications in that area. And her presentation is going to be looking at a new dimension of Eurorap. So I think Lina is now with us. Hello, welcome.
Welcome, good morning.
thanks for being here. And so if we've come from vehicle now to infrastructure, but not only. The floor is yours. So it's just before 10, so I'll try to be a little bit stricter now with the 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thanks, Lina.
Thank you. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So thank you very much, Ellen, for the introduction. The topic of the today from my side is to discuss a bit on what is the potential of big data for road safety, and especially how we achieve the UN road safety targets. So a little bit on Eurorap. We are an international not-for-profit association. We are tackling the road safety perspective of the equation of the safe system approach. We are responsible in several protocols with respect to risk assessment in Europe. We are also involved in a lot of training and accreditation. We're performing several research and innovation activities with respect to our risk assessment protocols, and also deployment, where we have several projects together with the European Investment Bank, as well as with other CEF projects. And also we are involved at the international perspective, where our global umbrella IRAP is, let's say, the ultimate responsible for all the global protocols. In Eurorap, we have 70 members as an association, from civil society members, authority members, and expert members. And we are all working on how can we address this issue of the human impact, of course, of the road crashes. And this is quite important to note that we have more than 6 billion of people. We have 3,626 people dying every day, with a cost of 1,007,731 per day. And that, of course, is split into a huge human impact to several of perspectives of severe injuries, fractures, brain injuries, and all these are related to the costs. We also have the United Nations Global Road Safety Performance Targets, where we are tackling the issue of road safety, especially Target 3 mentions that by 2030, all new roads, they need to achieve technical standards for all road users that take into account road safety or meet a 3-star or better. And number 4, it says that more than 75% of travel needs to meet technical standards. So, so the UN is supporting the IRA protocols, and we are tackling it, of course, with our own, let's say, solutions or vaccines for roads, as we call it. So what is the challenge? So the challenge is, where are crashes happening now? And of course, how severe they are? How safe are the roads for all road users, considering, of course, the road design, the volume, and the speed? And again, what is the performance tracking to drive change and measure success? With respect to Eurorap, we have at the moment 4 main core protocols. We have risk maps. This is more color-coded maps showing where people are dying and whether their crash risk is greatest. This risk map can inform, of course, priorities over the whole road safety actions, from management to infrastructure. As you can see from the map, we're talking about a green area of the road, which is more, let's say, the low risk in the roads, which is the safest, the red, which is the medium, and black, which is the high risk. We also have the star rating. So it means that if we lack absence of crash data, then a road inspection methodology can be a simple and objective measuring the level of safety of the building on the road. There we also have 5-star road segments, and of course, as you can understand, the 5-star is the most safest one, and 1-star is the least one. Investment plans and performance are two protocols where it's more related as policy tools, as we call it. Investment plans can prioritize and provide cost improvement options. So, for example, where on that particular road section we need to perform road upgrades to ensure that we see these different improvement options, and what is the business case that is for safer roads, because it's all about not only about cost, but it's amount of lives saved. So Safer Road Investment Plan provides the policy authority with the appropriate results on how many fatalities they are going to save and how much cost they're going to save on the road network if they proceed to road improvements. We also have performance tracking, which shows regular risk mapping. And for example, there was a month ago where, for example, the UK State the UK State of Transport presented the huge results of the UK, for example, on performance tracking over 10 years. So it's about celebration of success and actions to be taken. Again, we're talking about risk mapping. This is just some of the examples on how we see risk mapping on the network, not only at the European level, but also at the global level. So far, we have taken 1.5 million kilometers of risk mapping all over the world. But we also have taken into consideration the star rating results on how we see on how does my city compare to others. And so far, we have taken into consideration 1.1 million of kilometers of star rating all over the world as well. So how does the star rating process work? So we have two sections. So first of all, we are performing roads, not us, but our technical partners are performing a road survey. It is assessed every 100 meters. There is a coding of the road. The data are prepared. There is processing of the data, and then we arrive to the star ratings for the different types of vulnerable road users. And finally, we are producing also a safer road investment plan. But currently, this process is very time consuming. We're talking about a poor guy who is in the car driving with a camera on board. So this takes into consideration also data that needs to be manually inputted also into the system. And of course, this amount of time is also ensuring that we need also to make the big data a bit more clever. And we need to have not only this type of data, but we're talking about different types of sources of data in the future, where they are either going to come as crash data, vehicle data, mapping and navigation data, road survey, etc. And if you see on the circle, we're talking about different types of attributes. For example, how can we take so far lane widths through leader data, camera data, for example? How can we achieve median types? Maybe we can achieve it through street view or satellite data. So we are at the moment partnering with a lot of technology providers, and we are creating a neutral data marketplace where we can ensure that these star ratings are becoming more and more at the fingertips of the road authorities, so they can use the ones that are really would like to use for their own, let's say, purposes. What is a 5-star city? From a policy and partner approach, it's about focusing on safe streets for pedestrians and bicyclists. Of course, for me, it is a step up from the global minimum 3-star target, and we use the star rating protocol to complement and provide tangible indicators for safety improvements. What is measured for pedestrian and bicycles in star rating? Of course, we're looking on the intersection type, we're looking on the road condition, on the skid residence, traffic calming, number of lanes, street lighting, and what is the correlation of these attributes with respect to risk factors? Because what we are looking is how in that particular attribute, which is, for example, intersection type, what is the crash modification factor? So how many accidents can you see with this related attribute? We're looking also in different pedestrian crash types. So we have a lot of different types of crashes. So we have the along and run-off crossing, we have the crossing side road, we have the crossing inspected road. This is, for example, the bicycle crash types from a long crash, run-off or intersection crashes. And for us, we have recently also launched the NACTO street design guide, where we are working with them to establish on what does a 5-star street look like. A 1-star or 2-star roads, it talks about high-speed environments. We're talking about multiple lanes and the lack of safe and sidewalks and crossing facilities. A 3-star is more a moderate risk. We're talking about low to moderate speed. We're talking about sidewalks and crossing facilities that provide moderate level of safety, or, for example, within the network. 4 and 5, we're talking about low-speed environments with sidewalks, crossing facilities, and of course a lot of traffic calming and traffic speeds, of course, considering into this equation. So we're talking about we want to ensure that how safe are the world's roads for pedestrians, and of course we're looking on the different types of road users, from pedestrians to bicyclists and also to motorcyclists. Something which is also interesting is something that we're working together with Omdena. So we are looking on doing a huge, at the moment, challenge where we have all the biggest networks of big data and artificial intelligence engineers. We have already provided it with a challenge. We have all of the people now working in this challenge, and we will have soon several results with respect to our AI wrap. The source, we are also working with, of course, with other technology providers like TomTom, where we are working also on MoMA data. For example, we have recently finalized a big project also with TomTom and Anditi on a big CEF project on collection of data with respect to autonomous vehicles. There we are assessing the readiness and, of course, the visibility of road markings and signage over 2,000 kilometers of the TEN-T network. And we are doing this automated coding of data as well. So what we want to see in 2030, we want to see road authorities that they know which roads have 75% of travel, and those roads are 3-star or better. We want to see that manual coding is, of course, a thing of the past. Single attributes, of course, are available on a scale and frequency for all roads worldwide. And what is more important is that road users can map their own safest route and mode of choice. But above all, what is more important is that we need to have the life-saving potential of achieving this together for all different types of low income, lower middle income, and upper middle income countries all over the world, where there is a return on investment in everything that you invest. Thank you very much, Ellen. I hope it was not too fast.
Thank you. Thanks very much. No, and thanks for this great overview of also linking into the global context, the UN road safety framework. Welcome to all the others who have joined since Matthias. And now there is at least one question I see. Pedro, please bring in the question. Thanks.
Hi. So there are actually two questions. One is from Gert Blom from Melmond. Lina, how do you cooperate with the OEMs, the automotive industry, on road safety? Rating
Yes.
of the infrastructure is also depending on the interaction with and state-of-the-art vehicles using the road. Are you preparing for cooperative automated vehicles?
Yes, we are. We are at the moment in the framework of the Safe Lane project that we're working on with 4 member states. We're working with preparing the star rating for autonomous vehicles. And as I said, we are working on understanding how you can read their infrastructure from an OEM perspective. So we are working together with OEMs with that on this protocol.
Okay, another question from Jesse Delander. The technique you use to determine how many stars a road gets seems interesting to evaluate future design. So can we use this methodology to evaluate future design?
Exactly. So we also have we have a whole innovation framework, and another protocol that we have is that we're working and we have finalized currently together with other colleagues is the star rating for design. So it means that you can really map the future design and make sure it's 5-star before you do any risk assessments. I think that's really important when you start building new roads, that you want from start to be 5-star and you don't need to wait until the end. So yes, we have, and I will be happy also to provide you with a link, Jesse.
Okay. Ellen, there are no more questions on the chat box. Can I just ask a very quick question to Lina? So,
Yep.
So let's say I'm a medium-sized city, and I'm starting, new work on road safety. I'm starting, for example, a Vision Zero plan, and I want to get a good impression of the safety of the network. So I have 2 options. I do a crash statistics. So I go for past crashes, and that takes me, in my case, it took me 60 years to get a decent map. Or I go for risk assessment of the infrastructure using, for example, your methodology.
Yeah.
In your case, how long does it usually take to get an assessment of the risk at the network level for a medium-sized city?
So if, again, it's all about how much data does the city possess in its own discrepancy. If there are data on crash, if there are crash data, then developing the crash maps is just, let's say, within a week to produce the risk maps. For star rating, I think this is more important because this one, at the moment, because we are, let's say, doing it, it requires a day or 2 days to perform a risk assessment. It's you have a vehicle, you have someone driving it, and you assess the network in both, let's say, carriageways. Yeah, so it's not at all time consuming or.
It's fast.
It's fast.
Okay.
It's fast.
Yeah, I think that's what local authority managers want to hear. So if hopefully we'll be able to also find out a little bit more about this during the panel discussion. Thank you very much, Lina. So next, we're very happy to have Patricia La Torre from Humanising Autonomy. You can say that again. Autonomy. So Patricia previously was working for Bosch in North America and Europe, and one of her main tasks at Humanising Autonomy is engaging partners and customers. So within our session here on risk assessment, she's going to be presenting a very interesting way at looking at how to protect vulnerable road users, pedestrians in particular, I think. So Patricia, the floor is yours. It's 10:15, so 25 past. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, I think we've already heard a lot of really interesting kind of topics, and a lot of what's been said is really resonating with what we're doing at Humanising Autonomy. So we believe at the company that urban mobility is not built for people. We've seen the accident statistics. We know it's not safe. We all probably have personal experiences of near misses, questionable things that are happening. And we believe that the solution is of course, our solution, our product, but it's also the data that's required and the access and how we're working with customers and partners. So a little bit about the company and what we're doing. We believe, or we're creating the global standard that redefines the way machines interact with people in any environment. I'm going to talk about urban mobility here, of course. But how we do that is that we've developed a software that is able to understand, analyze, and predict human behaviors in real time. So it's a software that can integrate with any existing camera system. How we do that is that we use a combination of statistical AI, behavioral psychology, and novel deep learning. It's a lot of buzzwords, but really what's happening is, and you see on the slide, we can output things such as distraction, risk, but really a crossing intent. Understanding if the pedestrian, the cyclist, the e-scooter user, any vulnerable road user, are they going to step out in front of a vehicle, yes or no? And really we do this all the time. You understand what people are doing based on where they're looking, where are they walking, are they carrying something? There's really granular insights and behavior traits that we exhibit, that we see, and as a human, our brain processes it and says, that person's going to step out. We want cars to understand that same thinking and be able to react. So we're going to create safer journeys. With the 2 seconds in advance warning, we're able to prevent about 90% of crashes in urban environments. It's also, of course, about efficiency in terms of reducing hard braking, which increases fuel consumption or reduces fuel consumption. But it's also about, when you're talking about autonomous vehicles, you don't want the shuttle or other vehicle stopping every time it thinks something's going to happen. So we have to have a really efficient and smooth riding experience. So we have 2 products here. We have HA Edge and HAxCloud. Edge is what can integrate with vehicles, and that can be with a dash cam that can be directly mass produced into the vehicle with OEMs and tier 1s. We have aftermarket applications, autonomous vehicles. But you also think about construction and other areas that we have vulnerable users interacting with machinery. And then there's cloud. So I think Matthias talked about this, the dashboards, giving public and private partners the insights that they're looking for. And it's really, if you think about it, this behavioral piece, there's a lot of counting, sensor-based. So we have an understanding of where people are, but really we lack an understanding of how they're using infrastructure, how they're behaving in complex urban environments, and we can provide those insights. So this video is on our website, but here you see we're operating with data from a couple different continents, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but you see a lot of happening here in the scene real quick. What's really important to understand is, so when the cyclist comes out, apologies. When the cyclist comes out, the software has already detected that that person has an intent to continue to cross. Of course, I think most of us would already slow down in this case if we're driving, but there's actually a lot of vulnerable users that are a lot closer to the vehicle, but the software understands, because of their orientation, because of their behaviors, that they're not a risk, that they're going to stay on the sidewalk. So it's the cyclist that currently is the #1 concern in this scenario. So who are we working with? It's really a lot of different partnerships, and something that's been echoed already is that, a lot of people have data, a lot of organizations, but how do we really get those actionable insights? So we believe in taking an ecosystem approach, working with commercial partners, but also public authorities, cities, and the partnerships. So educating people on the opportunities of AI, how can it really increase vulnerable user safety, working with organizations ranging from World Economic Forum, members of PAVE, so really also that PRPs, understanding what's going on, Smart Mobility Living Lab in London, a couple of projects with Transport for London, because these organizations are forward thinking. They understand that they sit on a lot of data and they want to be able to leverage it and use it. And so that's why we really think that ecosystem approach is going to be important. And we really actually do focus on data partnerships. So we understand that not every partnership we enter is going to, lead to those millions, even as an SME, as you're struggling and then working on these things. You have to understand that the ecosystem, the technology partnerships, they're going to help you in the long run. And at the end of the day, it's how can we increase vulnerable user safety immediately and today. So we do like to talk about the we, and I think this is also something that hasn't been touched on, is when people are developing these advanced safety critical algorithms, products, you have to have a diverse team developing them. So we're a team of 30. Amongst the 30 of us, we have a 50-50 male-female split across the whole company. That's something we're very proud of. And just more of a personal fun fact about everyone is that amongst the 30 of us, we have about 20 different nationalities, passports, cultures. So when you think about the different experiences we all have, if we're going on vacation, we understand drivers behaving differently, the pedestrians behave differently, these kinds of stories and edge cases to us, they're not edge cases. They're kind of the real things that we're dealing with. And through those experiences, we can share them. But focusing a little bit more on what we're working with and the topic of data here. So we can integrate with any existing camera system. I don't think I need to tell the audience here in terms of where there's all cameras on vehicle infrastructure. And because it can integrate with existing camera systems, we don't require additional installations. So that's a really big factor for public sector, who is probably facing budget constraints in current times, understanding that we don't need to have physical installations. So that's a big advantage. We also have a really big database. I talked about kind of data partnerships that we're engaging in. So we also believe that this is really critical to developing what we call white box solutions. We need explainable AI. We're talking about data, understanding how that data is helping AI make the decisions that it's making. So in our system, we have 160 million different types of vulnerable road users with about 14 different label classes. So pedestrians, cyclists, persons in wheelchair. And you see kind of the different snapshots. It's different weather, different lighting. As I mentioned, the wheelchair users. Really important that you have diverse and global training data. We also never identify, track, or trace. We really think that cannot be stressed enough that these solutions have to be explainable and ethical. That's really kind of the core if we want these systems to be adopted by the broader public. So this is another video real quick. It's an accident video. I can't say that the person was fine, walked away okay, but you see this all the time in urban environments. So the road user looked, but still stepped out. I mean, the bus here is moving at very critical speeds. And you see here that about 0.3 seconds before the collision at this point, we've already detected that he's going to step onto the road. So we've talked about accident and near miss videos. That's really critical. And if we can alert that driver the 2.5 seconds before the incident in this case, we can save that life. Of course, in this instance, the person walked away, but we want to avoid this. And if you think about buses, you also have to think about the passenger safety. So this is really kind of an encompassing solution that's going to address those things. When we're talking about video data, a lot of people kind of just see that as, okay, you have a screen, you have some images, and that's it. But it's really about seeing beyond the video. So we are able to take video footage, and this is a screenshot example, and actually with machine learning, dissect and segment the scenery in front of us. So we are able to understand where are the lanes, where's the infrastructure, and automatically pull out the nearest objects. So in this case, it's a pedestrian further down the road, and you see it's actually quite far, but also understanding where are the vehicles. We can't just rely on the vulnerable road users. We also, of course, have to understand where other vehicles are in the scenery. And then we've also already talked about blind spots. This is a significant risk to vulnerable road users in urban environments. And using camera angles, they're very different types of cameras, and understanding how to work, not just with the data, but also with the hardware that's providing the data. We have to talk to chip makers. We have to understand the processing requirements on the vehicle. So when we talk about data, I think it's really important to also understand how that data is being generated, what's behind it, what's the quality of the data. I think those are really important points to mention. I will make a little plug. We do have a project on social distancing that my colleague Anna is going to talk about in another session here at the conference later today, if you're interested in that application. But also here, we talked about how do you present that data, the dashboard opportunity. So this is the video snapshot that you saw earlier of the accident. We're able to just automatically detect accidents and near misses. And then for freight or fleet partners, we actually map it out. And we say at this intersection, on Friday, you had this number of incidents, you click on it, you pull out the actual metrics to understand what's happening. I think this is really, really important as we go forward. Of course, we can look at all the data points that we have in the world, but if we're not actually bringing that to the people, the drivers, how are we actually going to change behaviors? So I think that's a really important aspect to knock on as well. And then lastly, an example of how we integrate with static cameras. So here you see this is some old work or previous work that we did with the Smart Mobility Living Lab in London. Understanding that, okay, there's people using sidewalks, how are they actually using them? So you see that we assign kind of arrows to what's going on, we track. So it's not just also about tracking where they're walking, because a static sensor can do that, but understanding how are they using infrastructure. So a cyclist would show up differently with different points here, and then projecting where they're going to walk across the scenery. So this is really important then as well when you're talking about autonomous vehicles in these testing grounds. We can check, are behaviors changing, or people more risky, less risky? So really, I think the opportunity here is that we have data, and we're only going to get more insights from this. But bringing in that citizen perspective, that vulnerable road user perspective, is going to be critical if we want to make sure that urban environments become a safe environment. That's it.
Great, lovely. Thank you very much. No, absolutely. The pedestrians and cyclists have to be a big priority if we want to make our urban streets safer. It was really fascinating. Pedro, if you can bring in some of the questions from the chat.
Hi, well, hi, Patricia. Well, two very interesting questions. One from Gert Blom. Patricia, at least in the Netherlands, we have more and more accidents caused by high-speed electric bikes. For example, collisions with pedestrians and other cyclists. Could your software also be a solution for this kind of risks? Do you see market opportunities in this segment as well?
Yeah, it's a significant issue, and detecting accidents and near misses between vulnerable user types is actually something that's really critical to cities, to urban planning, and that's exactly what we can do. And then providing those insights, understanding why did those happen? Is it because potentially the cycle lane is too close to the sidewalk, or what are the issues here? Is it too close to the road as well? There's lots of different use cases. E-scooters, of course. London, we don't have them yet, but understanding that everywhere else, there's a lot of discussions going on that are being deployed. So the between vulnerable user interactions are just as critical, and we're able to address those.
Interesting. And another question from Manon Coyne. How good are you at predicting? Have you gathered data on the reliability of your movement predictions?
Yeah, so I think it was on the slide there. It's currently a 99% accuracy when you compare it to what other companies use, which is a physics-based model. So just looking at kind of the physical characteristics of movement. They don't consider the behavioral traits. And so by using that combination of behavioral psychology, statistical AI, it's about a 99% accuracy for crossing intent.
Fascinating. Yeah, well, that's it, Helen.
Super, thanks.
I mean, actually, Patricia should be able to guess what I'm going to ask now. That's really
put me on the spot so early in the morning here.
Exactly. So, Patricia, you'll stay with us for the panel. If I now pass the floor to our last speaker, who is. Sorry, hang on, because the name had changed and I had Shirley to roller, exactly. Project manager of Verkeer Meer at the Vervoer region in Amsterdam. So this is the transport authority of Amsterdam region. And Verkeer Meer itself is a program for behavioral activities on the topic of traffic safety. Yeah, we're going to hear more about traffic safety education and campaigns, but of course the link to risk assessment, new methods and sources of data is how we can target our traffic safety education and campaigns more to the high risk groups. So Shirley, if you can share your presentation, the floor is yours. So
yeah, I'm trying to share the presentation here, so let's see if it works.
You have the icon. Yeah, there we are. It's coming. Super.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Over to you.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Shirley from the Vervoerregio Amsterdam. I know it's all very difficult to pronounce. But I'm here to tell you a bit more on the practical use of data in policy making. So we've learned a lot about how you can gather data this morning, and we're a local authority, and we actually use all that data to make policy and try also to reach that goal of 0 victims in 2050. So let me start by telling what the Vervoerregio is. We're an authority of traffic and transport in the region of Amsterdam. We are a partnership of 50 municipalities, and we commission public transport, but we also invest in infrastructure and mobility. So mobility is like smart mobility, but also sustainable mobility and also traffic safety. which we are here today to talk about. So for traffic safety, we actually have three different approaches. So we invest in infrastructure, make sure it's safe. We are also the chairman of our Traffic Safety Enforcement Committee in the region, and we commission traffic education and campaigns with the platform Verkeer Meer, or if we translate it, Traffic and More. So today I work for the platform Verkeer Meer, so more the behavioral side. And in total, as Vervoerregio, we are trying to reach that goal of less and less traffic victims. So we have a few statistics here. You can see it's still quite high. It's so we want to flatten that curve, or actually even change that curve. So we want to change that pattern. And we are actually already working on traffic safety for quite some time. Even in the 1930s, we had practical exams for youth on traffic safety. So we need a different approach than we've been doing so far. And that's why we wanted to do a risk analysis and make a risk-driven approach. So last year, we asked SWECO, the independent consultancy bureau, to conduct an analysis on the risks. And they made a prognosis of the situation in 2030 based on current situation, and therefore they used open data and relevant developments. So therefore they talked to our municipalities and hear about all their plans on how they want to expand to cities. And on that basis, they made a prognosis for the situation in 2030. And they differentiated it by modality, age, and location. So we can really see, okay, what are the target groups? What are the target modalities? What are the big teams at play? And it's both done for the entire region as well as for the individual municipalities. So we can work for the entire region. So what's the bigger picture here? But also the municipalities can see for themselves, okay, what are the issues in my municipality and in my city. But let's focus here a bit more on the overall region. So the target groups actually are senior citizens, juniors, so the age 12 to 24 years, and young adults, so 25 to 29 years, and those are usually the people that just have their driver's license, and so they're young drivers. And in modalities, it's mopeds, so such things as scooters, speed pedelecs, and also e-bikes, as was the question before, and pedestrians. So those are the people that are usually the victims in traffic safety, in traffic. And the teams that are most common are distraction, driving under influence, and the difference in speed. We use all these insights to map our goals. So it's all in Dutch and you can't read it, but it's more the vision of how we used this data. So the overall goal is to have zero traffic victims. We do that by safe infrastructure, behavioral influence, and enforcement. And the program Verkeer Meer is the behavioral program. And we actually want to focus on the knowledge of everyone of the rules in traffic. We also want them to have the skills. So you want everyone to have the proper skills to drive a car or to use a bike in a city. And we also want them to have the social norm. So they actually have to want to abide the rules and behave properly in traffic. And so we use all these elements and make this big target tree. And then it's time for the implementation. So for the infrastructure, we made a program with our municipalities And in total, they have we have gathered last year for over 160 improvements in our infrastructure. So yeah, so that's really nice. And then we also have a continuous effort on enforcement. And for the campaigns and education, we have the targeting risks and groups. So we've learned that we want more focus on education for high school and new drivers. So actually, we did a European tender for our education program, and this was the input for that. So now we see that we have a lot more focus in our education program for high school as well. And then there will also be the themes such as alcohol and drugs in traffic, how to use your cell phone in traffic, or actually how not to use your cell phone in traffic. And there will also be a lot of focus on the social norm. And then there is developing campaigns on themes such as drugs and traffic, medication and traffic, use of smartphones in traffic. So yeah, the use of smartphones in traffic is quite big now in the Netherlands. So we have the Mono campaign, and we are making it bigger and bigger each year. It's also quite it's a national theme, but we also want to use that in a bit more focus in our region. And then we have a program for active senior citizens and the use of an e-bike. We call it Doortrappen, and it's it's for them to learn how to use your e-bike, how to still be an active citizen, but also realize that you're not as physically well as you used to be, that your medication is also working on your system, so you react differently than you used to. I think that is the presentation for now. Let me go back to all of you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Shirley.
You're welcome.
Very, very challenging trying to change social norms. For cyclists, especially, I'm thinking of cyclists in the Amsterdam region.
Yeah.
So, Pedro, any questions from the chat?
Well, not questions on the chat, but I can ask one from Shirley, may I?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so Shirley, how much did data analysis inform your strategy? And on the other hand, in all these education campaigns that you see, in any way, was there an opportunity for these vulnerable road users to inform the region on where they felt the network was less safe?
Yeah, so they use open data on the region, so they can actually see where are most of the incidents happening, and can we predict by the knowledge we already have where that would be. But they also talk to all the municipalities to learn from them and the people from enforcement, from okay, what do they see on the street? So they enrich the data with more qualitative knowledge. And we also have different groups in the Netherlands, such as the ANWB, so that's more of the road users program. So they also included information from them and their insights in the analysis that they then provided to us with, okay, so these are the target groups, these are the modalities that are most at risk, these are the themes that are most likely to inform us. Yeah.
Very interesting. That's it for questions.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask the other speakers now also to share their cameras and audio again? So we have heard from Shirley from Amsterdam region, Patricia from global London, Lina from Eurorap, and then finally, yes, Matthias at the very beginning, presenting there on how Daimler is working with data in London. So we've got a real mix. Before we started, I said it's a great ingredients for cocktails. So you have all these different sources of data that can be used to improve road safety and help us to reach our new European targets of reducing deaths and serious injuries by 2030. I want to ask, because really it's some very different disciplines and specializations here that we have in our virtual session room. So I want to ask a question, but whilst to do that, I'm now looking at the virtual audience out there in the chat room. We've still got a lot of people who are with us for the last 20 minutes here. If you would like to ask another question to our speakers, then this is your moment. So please type it into the chat box. Really open question to all of you. What have you learned from one another? I mean, I think there are really quite some boxes here. If you were to imagine now that you were going into the coffee at the conference in the Netherlands, and you were to bump into one another in a little post-session huddle, what would you say to one another that you really think has been original or new from how we deal with this massive challenge of managing data to help us to improve road safety? Maybe I'll ask Matthias first, because you were first on. We don't have your sound. Actually, there's a red line on everybody's. Can I ask Patricia? Can you just check your sound?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Super. You're there. So, yeah. What did you learn this morning?
I mean, it's good to hear sometimes that you're not working on these topics alone. That there's other, organizations, individuals that are taking different approaches, and I think it's always good to be reminded that it's that ecosystem approach that we can share best practices, understanding what's worked. I think I saw in the chat there's comment, Germany, there's special, we always talk about there with the data requirements, data privacy, and so what can we learn from each other from the actual project insights? I think it's always a jumping point that I like to take.
Okay, thank you. Lina.
Yes, I'm also looking at a very interesting question addressed by Manon on the governance of a partnership to ensure road safety. Would you mind if I answer to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. As you know, under the United Nations Road Safety Collaboration, there has been a new discussion on how you can support, let's say, road safety national strategies. And in that sense, there is already a discussion about how can you develop this type of partnerships. So there is a very interesting document on how under road safety can you ensure the integration of different types of, let's say, stakeholders in order to ensure this type of partnership on road safety. So I would really urge, let's say, urban cities, regions, or ministries to look upon this UN document. I will also put it on the chat. But what is more interesting is that within that document of the UN, it mentions that you have to go on a 10-step plan. So you have to start by analyzing the whole situation and ensuring who do we want to discuss. And looking on these stakeholders and speakers of today, I think we all need to be in that, let's say, roundtable to discuss the challenges and what can we offer to support on road safety fatalities. So for me, I'm just trying to, let's say, couple the previous question with a question that have been asked by Manon. So I'm going at the same time to post also the UN road safety 10-step plan as well. So
great, thank you. Thanks very much, Lina. So to you, Shirley, then, what have you learned from your colleagues here working towards the same aims? And yeah, I mean, then specifically as a follow-up in your role in Amsterdam, how do you govern the partnerships around road safety?
So yeah, first of all, it's really interesting to learn how far along we are with data gathering. I know we are using a smart mobility more and more often, but I wasn't aware that we are actually so far and also being able to predict behavior on the street. So I think that's really interesting development, and so that's really interesting. And on how we govern is, so we work together with a lot of municipalities, but then we also have a program more focused on smart mobility. So we're trying to link those two together more and more, and I think this is really valuable input as well on that issue. So we can actually combine all this knowledge from smart mobility to municipalities to stakeholder organizations, and organize or facilitate that roundtable conversation in our region.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks very much. Matthias, let's test your sound. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
I can hear you. Fantastic.
All
right, so. Oh,
I took
okay,
my
well, it
emergency.
worked. Your phone,
yeah,
maybe.
Sorry for that. And
no problem. So, listen, Matthias, there are two questions. One, as I asked you a few moments ago, what is it that you've learned from this morning, from these very interesting presentations from your colleagues here? And then secondly, also one which I think is of great relevance to you, thinking back to your new partnership with Transport for London. So what do you think should be the governance of a partnership to ensure road safety? The two questions, in whichever order.
My easy answer to the first one is it really supports my conviction that it's all about co-creation. In case you take all the pieces in the room, in this virtual room, then you will see that we are pretty close to a good concept towards Vision Zero, I think. And no one of us will have the sole solution for the challenges that we have. So this is not what I've learned, but what gave me a conviction that we are on the right path here, and that we should follow up on that, because it's about behavior. It's about the expertise of a city to implement some measures to change the behavior. It's about data analytics and really advanced analytics, and it's also about creating, I think, some kind of a measurement for the safety of the roadmap. So for the road, and this is, I think, what we all can bring to the party. And regarding the governance topic, I think this is something that is I think overestimated a bit, because it's about finding a right partnership model where we have a balance of interests, where we have a balance of powers, and that enables also businesses to earn money. This is, I think, the very challenging thing, to balance an interest of a city that is really much about social value, of course, and their citizens, and on the other hand side, also find some energy to power our engines. Yeah, because I think we love to do the right things in the field of urban mobility, but there is a need for something to power our engines, and this is money. That's life. That's the situation that we're facing and that we must face. And to balance all of those interests, I think this is really up for the governance of such a partnership, and is essential.
Okay, thank you. No, I think looking at the different points included in the document that Lina had shared there from the UNECU would also be very helpful, especially if you're starting out on a new partnership and have some goals to have good governance. So Pedro, I think we have a question from Geno. Are there any others in the chat? Excuse me, that I've missed?
No.
Okay.
So from Geno, hi Geno, to
Hi.
all, should there be special algorithms and data about behavior of the most vulnerable road users, children, elderly, and users with reduced mobility? Because as we all know, they move differently, and children often spontaneously. I think this would be a question more for Patricia, maybe.
Yeah.
And if I may another question, Ellen, may I?
Yes, of course.
So when we look back over the past century, policies to ensure the safety of pedestrians were based mostly on constraining the movement of pedestrians, constraining them to use sidewalks, to use crosswalks, instead of using the streets freely. And the question is, now that we see AV technology approaching, do we in the coming century, will the strategy to ensure the safety of pedestrians, will it still be based on the constrainment of pedestrians, or does AV technology allows for different approaches? So first for Geno.
Yeah, so I can go ahead and answer that one. So yes and no is the question. So I think doing it in an ethical way is going to be really difficult. There's special protection measures around data with children, this kind of thing. So I would urge that as well, to think about that. Reduced mobility users, I think, are extremely underrepresented today in safety work and understanding their preferences, their accessibility. So I think that's definitely a group that has to be accounted for a lot more across the industry, private, public sectors, all of the above. But there's also other ways of doing it. So when we think of autonomous vehicles, today you have school zone signs that tell you this is a school zone, you should slow down, and I hope most human drivers do. So can we program operational design domains to account for that? And would autonomous vehicles slow down automatically to account for those kind of dynamic objects and surrounding factors? So that's another way of doing it. We don't just have to rely on these special AI programs and kind of, the software behind it. We can also use best practices from what we do as humans. So that would be, I think, one way of doing it, and then seeing how that is implemented.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Patricia. Who would like to respond to Pedro's question about automation? Lina, perhaps, but Shirley or Matthias as well.
Yeah, thanks. So as I have showed you in one of my slides, we're working on this CEF project called SLANE, where we are, let's say, doing the readiness of the infrastructure for autonomous vehicles. We have started, let's say, only on analyzing the readability of road markings and road signs. But again, the issue of looking on other road attributes, like, for example, vulnerable road users, children, but it's not only how to detect humans, it's also how to detect, for example, bike lanes, how to detect pedestrian crossings, how to detect school zone supervisors, as we call them. So you have several, let's say, elements. So we have finalized a study, and we're actually going to launch it on the 10th of December, where we are going through a whole state-of-the-art on where we are on readability of road attributes. And because you mentioned quite a lot of these ODDs, so we are not even near. I think there is a lot of work currently being done by the OEMs, and of course Matthias will tell us a bit more on that. But we still face a lot of issues on the whole automative driving systems, as we call it. So the sensing, perception, the path, the planning path. So we need also to ensure that sensing and perception is, first of all, worked well. So it means that we have the correct cameras. Is it cameras? Is it HD mapping? How long is the distance to be able to detect vulnerable road users? We are still, I think, not have arrived to an answer on that one. And I think we are all working on this topic. And hopefully, before autonomous vehicles are out there, I think that will be the most important topic to solve, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. So
Ellen,
just
if I may jump on that,
yeah.
if I may, and then hand it over to Shirley, of course. I think autonomous vehicles will not change urban mobility, but the way or the path towards autonomous vehicles will already change the way that we're living in the urban mobility field, because we're enabling our cars to detect pedestrians, to detect cyclists, avoid crashes actively already. So I think the real power of AV is the path towards AV in the city. So I think this is what we really should consider, not waiting for 5 more years when autonomous vehicles will hit the road, but already utilize what we learn on our path towards autonomous driving. So this is just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, no, thank you. And making sure that those in-vehicle safety technologies that we have already today, or the ones that are coming in 2022, 2023, are going to work well, because otherwise, yes, it's going to be much more difficult when it's really in full automation mode. We've only got a few more minutes left. Shirley, did you have a response to Pedro's question there? Would you want to comment on something else? Yeah.
Yeah, no. So I think, like Matthias said, it can help on safety on the street, but it won't be the only solution. And what you can see now in policy making is that we're less focused on constraining pedestrians and cyclists, and more on making the city for everyone. And in the past, you saw that it was mainly focused on how can we get to the city and from A to B in the fastest way as possible, and that's usually by car or by high-speed public transport. And now we are focusing more on how can we use it for everyone. So I think in the future it will be both. It will be both making sure it's available for also pedestrians and cyclists, and also using the new technologies in making the streets safer. Yeah.
No. Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks very much. So there was a question here, I think, Pedro, from Manon on the e-scooters and e-bikes. Have we already covered that?
No. Two new questions. Aha, they're coming.
Yes, please.
So
then
to Shirley.
And then those two, and then we have to end. Yeah.
Okay. To Shirley, according to you, the new mobility services, e-scooters, e-bikes, represent a threat to urban road safety? What research would be needed to answer this question? And to Matthias from Gert Blom. Matthias, no automation without connectivity and cooperative systems, right? So for very, very short answers.
Exactly, Shirley. So on e-scooters, are they a threat?
Yes and no. So they can help people to cover long distances instead of using a car. So in that way, it makes it a bit more safer, because usually e-bikes, e-scooters are a bit more safer than cars, even though we also have a lot of new technologies to make cars safer. But yeah, we do need to gather data, and actually recently we sent e-scooters to the roads because they were going way faster than normal bikes and normal pedestrians. So currently they are also a threat. So it's yes and a no answer.
Okay.
And we need to gather data on this. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Matthias. A yes?
Yeah.
Like Gert said, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's my short answer.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's, as already said, it's about combining the right data points and the right sources and bringing it together to have a more holistic sense for the city. And this is really key.
Great. Well, thank you for answering those questions, and also for your excellent presentations. Thank you very much to POLIS for inviting all of us, to give the presentations, me to moderate. If I can conclude, the European strategy, the new road safety strategy, embodies this safe system approach, which means that we need different elements of the whole transport system to help us to address road safety and improve the current overall road safety performance. So yeah, looking at a vehicle, we all need to work together to reach the new goals. And I think each of you have really demonstrated what contribution you can make. So thank you very, very much for that.